And then it was discovered, thanks to the wonderful feminist that Blake Lively is. To people that are wondering in the comments if you should feel bad because she looks anxious, the answer is no, you shouldn't feel bad, and she should be anxious, okay?
Blake Lively is spiraling after Candace Owens dismantled her fake victim routine and shredded every pitiful stunt she tried to pull.
This was really, truly just high school bullying done to the Hollywood extreme.
Owens didn't hold back, torching Lively's manipulations, media payoffs, and her desperate crusade to sabotage Baldoni.
Was a massive bitch.
She even declared that Blake's level of deceit was beyond forgiveness, an orchestrated scheme that crossed every line.
Think about how Justin Baldoni felt when he was in that basement at his own movie premiere, and they were laughing and dancing upstairs, thinking that they had almost done it.
Now Blake is in full-blown crisis mode, and honestly, watching Candace drag her is pure spectacle. This is what happens when you play the victim while scheming behind the curtain. Eventually, someone sharp enough will rip off the mask. Blake thought she was untouchable, that a few feminist buzzwords would polish her image and keep the media in her pocket. Not this time. Not with Candace standing center stage, handing her one of the most brutal public humiliations of her career.
Ask is not on the people who caught you doing that thing to extend forgiveness to you when you have not asked for forgiveness. That is the important part here, okay?
This is the disease of Hollywood royalty like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. They float in a bubble, assuming the public is too naive to notice. Blake painted herself as the innocent starlet up against a so-called monster, but Candace tore that fairy tale to pieces. What's left is the real Blake, a calculating, PR-obsessed manipulator who tried to weaponize the media and got burned instead.
You recapture that in your own imagination. Recapture how Justin Baldoni and his family must have felt realizing that if it wasn't for us meddling kids, okay? If it wasn't for us meddling kids, he would have effectively been branded as a sexual pervert. That would have been the story of Justin Baldoni.
The internet is in flames. And for good reason. This isn't some minor clapback. It's a full-scale demolition of Hollywood's favorite game, playing the victim while secretly pulling strings behind closed doors. Blake, she has no comeback. Picture her storming around the house, yelling at Ryan to speed dial TMZ, while Candace Owens just sits back and laughs. And the fakest part of all, Blake's paper-thin victim narrative. She went from beloved Hollywood sweetheart to suddenly industry-oppressed starlet, and the media swallowed it whole, even as she was actively trying to nuke Justin Baldoni's career.
This was meant to be an act of evil against a harmless person. She sensed his weakness and she went for it. And yes, I too would be anxious and uncomfortable if the world finally saw me for exactly what I...
But here's the reality, Blake. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to cry victim while secretly paying PR teams to leak smear campaigns. Candace pulled receipts. Lively's own people were spoon-feeding scripted sob stories to TMZ, People, and Variety. Even worse, her timeline is a disaster. In December 2024, she swore Baldoni was a monster and claimed she'd been suffering for years. By February 25, her own legal filings contradicted half her earlier statements. Candace tore through those inconsistencies like a forensic analyst.
Give it, I will not forget it, but when she comes down and asks for an apology, then we can revisit that question.
Candace laid it out clean. Blake's story doesn't add up. If she had solid evidence, why was she constantly shifting her narrative depending on how the media reacted? The answer writes itself. There was never a real case. It was smoke and mirrors, a PR stunt crafted to milk public sympathy while sabotaging Baldoni's career. Owens didn't buy a word of it, and frankly, no one with common sense should either.
Was into a category of porn that nobody has ever heard of, which is a woman giving birth. Realize that they sat down, they made threats in an effort to take over his movie. And when they didn't get what they wanted, they were willing to brand him as a sexual predator via one of the most powerful news organizations in the world.
And then came the knockout punch. Candace exposed Blake Lively as the ultimate fake feminist. Blake has built a brand on screaming about women's empowerment, but only when it serves her. She was one of the loudest voices during the Me Too wave, posturing as if she cared about accountability. Yet the second her own image was on the line, she weaponized that same language as a shield, turning a movement into her personal PR tool.
Thanks to the wonderful feminist that Blake Lively is.
Fast forward to 2025, and Blake is recycling the exact media tricks she once pretended to fight against. dragging a man's name through the mud with zero due process. Whatever happened to all those grand speeches about truth and justice? Seems they vanished the moment Blake found it convenient to push her own lies. Candace Owens mocked the hypocrisy mercilessly, and rightly so. Blake cries about Hollywood corruption, all while exploiting the very rot she claims to despise.
Is that there has definitively been a noticeable transition in Blake Lively's public demeanor, right? We're kind of used to seeing, and pardon my language here, but we're very used to seeing like a bitchy Blake, right? She's very unkind to reporters, and genuinely I think that there's just a lack of a better word there.
And here's where it gets brutal. Candace dug up Blake's own 2018 interviews where she railed against Hollywood spin machines and PR manipulation. Back then, Blake lectured about how powerful stars twist narratives to protect themselves. Fast forward, and she's running the exact same playbook, but expects the world to see her as different. Candace exposed the irony in Technicolor, and honestly, it's so thick it should be a crime. You can't preach justice when it suits you, then weaponize the media the second you're under fire.
She seems to hate the press junkets over the years. She barely seems to enjoy her fans. She kind of thinks that she's above her fans, thinks she's above the press.
Even feminist groups have started backing away. That's how radioactive Blake has become. As Candace pointed out, organizations once eager to champion her are now quietly distancing themselves because they know this ship is sinking. Supporting Blake now isn't solidarity. It's PR suicide. She wasn't fighting for women, she was fighting for herself, and Candace made sure no one forgot it. This isn't justice. It's ego, revenge, and power dressed up in empowerment slogans.
Have they asked for forgiveness? And Blake Lively has not. She has not said sorry. She has not even said sorry to the court. She has not dropped the lawsuit. She has not made a statement. She has not apologized to anyone for attempting to execute an act of perfect evil.
Then came the mic drop. Candace flat out compared Blake's entire strategy to Amber Heard's, and oh, you know that stung. She laid it all out. The PR manipulation, the victim theatrics, the feminist buzzwords, the contradictions, the shifting stories, and finally, the public unraveling. The similarities are almost carbon copy, and it's shocking more people didn't call it earlier. And let's be honest, we all know how Amber's saga ended. Candace said it plain. Blake's running the same script, and it's about to explode in her face.
Believe truly it is not an act to suggest that Blake Lively is anxious at this moment in time with so much on the line and everything that she feels that she's worked for.
This is exactly what happens when celebrities start believing they're untouchable. Blake thought she could weaponize social justice movements as a shield against accountability, but Candace Owens wasn't having it. She dismantled every lie, every staged claim, and every attempt to hijack the narrative. Now Blake's credibility is nothing but rubble, contradictions piled high, and a public image collapsing in real time. And the worst part? She has no one to blame but herself.
People are just not going to watch a movie with Blake Lively in it.
And then, Ryan Reynolds, Mr. I'm just a funny guy who stays out of drama, dragged straight into the fire. Candace torched him, exposing how he wasn't just the background husband, but knee-deep in Blake's legal mess. He thought he could hide behind sarcasm and gin ads, but Candace came armed with receipts. His squeaky clean good guy image shattered.
Showed you where he brought his mom in to mock Justin Baldoni and to make fun of him and his background and his family and ayahuasca. Blake Lively was present when that was shot.
So what receipts did Candace drop? Just a few little text messages from July 2024, where Reynolds himself reached out to Sony executives, trying to strong-arm them into dropping Justin Baldoni. Yes, that Ryan Reynolds...
Like Ryan Reynolds especially.
The same guy who plays the harmless goofball online was secretly meddling in a legal battle because Blake's fake victim narrative wasn't working fast enough. Candace roasted him for it, mocking how he thought he could scheme in the shadows and never get caught. The irony? Ryan stayed silent when Blake first launched her accusations, letting her play the fragile victim while he watched from the sidelines. But the second their brand took a hit, suddenly Ryan's pulling strings, transparent, predictable, pathetic.
And I said that immediately when she was on the red carpet with Ryan. He didn't, obviously, because he is, I think, just a narcissist to his core. But, you know, they chose to walk the red carpet and he was kind of pointing at her.
Candace laughed at the entitlement. This is Hollywood power couple privilege in its purest form. Ryan and Blake genuinely believed their names alone could bend studios, silence critics, and rewrite reality. But fans aren't buying it anymore. The goofy husband act? Dead. The internet has his number now, and he played himself into the ground.
You zoomed in on her face in that moment, and you saw Kevin Costner kind of looking down in that SNL moment. She doesn't look comfortable. She doesn't. She looks anxious. She looks like she doesn't really want to be out in public when she knows that the public does not like her.
Pathetic? Let's talk about Blake's PR circus. Candace Owens roasted it so savagely, you'd think Blake would have already fled the country. Honestly, her PR team deserves malpractice charges because every single move has backfired. Candace didn't just critique their strategy, she dismantled it piece by piece until nothing was left but embarrassment.
Like Lively, until the person at least asks for it. Also, you don't need to do drugs, accept Jesus and...
We take Lively's big emotional statement in March 2025. A perfectly rehearsed monologue, hand clutching her chest, fake tears glistening on cue. Candace dubbed it Oscar-worthy acting, and she wasn't wrong. You could practically hear the PR team whispering lines off camera. Candace mocked the timing too. No tears in December 2024 when the accusations first dropped, but the second the public stops buying it, cue the sobbing. Performative nonsense exposed in real time.
The event for South by Southwest, some people are noticing that she's rambling when she's speaking on stage to the point of almost incoherency, rambling to deal with her angst. Right.
Then came Blake's reckless attempt to smear Baldoni through the press, a move that detonated in her face almost instantly. Candace laughed at how major outlets like the Daily Mail and New York Post fact-checked her storylines and shredded her inconsistencies. Blake thought she could drown the internet in fake headlines and skate by unchecked, but she forgot one thing. People actually read beyond the clickbait now. Candace ripped her apart for assuming the public would blindly swallow her narrative.
Definitely rambling, and you can sense she's uncomfortable and a lot of hand movements, but I'll also add that even when you see her walking the red carpet, she's suddenly very nice to fans. It's a totally different Blake Lively.
And let's not ignore the most absurd stunt of all. Blake's wild attempt to subpoena Hollywood execs who had zero connection to the case. She was tossing subpoenas like confetti, dragging random industry names into her circus just to project power. Candace compared it to flailing in a pool when you don't know how to swim, desperate, clumsy, and doomed. It was a last-ditch play for credibility, but all it did was spotlight her panic. Candace mocked it as one of the weakest PR strategies she'd ever seen, and she wasn't wrong. But here's the kicker. Blake wasn't finished. She tried to weaponize Taylor Swift, and Candace dismantled that move so brutally, Blake may never recover.
Very mean girl who will even use A-list power and the threat of dragons to take somebody down who just wanted to bring forth a movie that they were passionate about.
So let's unpack this train wreck step by step. Back in October 2024, Blake and Taylor were spotted publicly hanging out. At first, it read like an innocent bestie moment. But then Baldoni's counter-lawsuit dropped just weeks later, and people started connecting the dots. Was this all just another PR ploy? Candace certainly thought so. She called it out immediately. Blake was trying to use Swift as a human shield. And honestly, that's exactly what it was.